Let's wait for another 2 minutes before everyone has arrived. Good morning, United States. Good afternoon, Europe. Welcome in the webinar of Marketing Content Hub. Today, we will be doing a full demo webinar where we will go through all of the highlights of the different apps of Marketing Content Hub. So I will not dive into all details. By the end of the webinar, we will see that there's a couple of other webinar schedules which will go more into details in all of the different applications. My name is Bimizre. I am Director of Knowledge and Support at Stylabs. So let's start with introducing you in Marketing Content Hub. Marketing Content Hub is basically an application or tool which integrates and blends boundaries between traditional marketing silos. And I'm not sure if people hear me, but I get feedback that you don't. Yeah, okay, audio is fine. Right, so there was some small problem with the audio. So let's start over again. So Marketing Content Hub integrates and blends boundaries between traditional marketing silos. It provides an integrated solution for digital management, DAM, marketing portal, marketing resource management, MRM, web to print, digital rights management, DRM, and product information management. I will high-level introduce all of these different apps, and after the introduction, I will go through the actual demo itself. So let's start with digital asset management itself. Thanks to digital asset management, you're basically able to manage digital marketing assets, including photos, layouts, packaging artwork, videos, and many more. And it allows you to align it with the way you do business. Marketing Content Hub is also designed for challenging digital asset management scenarios and supports complex metadata, rights management throughout security and worldwide distribution. DRM, or digital rights management, is basically a way of keeping track of the rights and match intended use with what you've licensed. So people might have licensed assets in the system and have limits in usage for different type of users. So digital rights management keeps track of this. Then we have marketing resource management. And this allows you to plan your marketing calendar and organize your content production with a structured and streamlined process. For example, for your project managers, it allows them to master their operations through stage-gate workflows and dashboards, and steer teams toward their targets with collaboration tools, including browser-based annotations and validations. Another app we have included in Marketing Content Hub is Product Information Management. And thanks to PIM, in Marketing Content Hub, you can basically seamlessly integrate existing product data from master data platforms like SAP with new marketing content to media files and creates one single version of the truth. It also allows to support multiple brands, complex product ranges, and lifecycle, as well as localization. Aside from the strong digital asset management setup, Marketing Content Hub also offers you a direct dialogue with your Marketing Content Hub community through an engaging, branded, responsive marketing and brand portal. And last application is Web2Print. And lots of printing production needs to be on brand with accurate information, but you not necessarily want to flood your studio with last-minute assignments or pay external production fees. Our Web2Print application and layout optimization allow end users to self-service through their browser and personalize validated on-brand pieces of collateral. All right, so let's now move to Marketing Content Hub itself. So I will start demoing the digital asset management application of Marketing Content Hub first. So when we log in into Marketing Content Hub, we get by default, of course, on the homepage of Marketing Content Hub. On the menu, we see a bunch of different navigation items. The most important part for them is the what we call content page. And in the content page, basically, you can find all final material of the DAM. So it's a page which lists by default, let's say, the last uploaded assets, but it also allows you for searching, of course. So on the left hand of the content page, you see that there's a couple of different search capabilities. So I'll try to walk through them one by one. So for example, let's say we would want to search for a certain keyword. By typing this over here. For example, let's try to search for broccoli, the vegetable, and let's see what we get. Well, we get two digital assets. And why do we get these assets? Well, we are basically in a demo environment, which is of a virtual wine marketeer, which has uploaded assets, of course, about his wines, but also about all of the dishes you can typically use by drinking the wines. So this person has also uploaded the let's say the recipe images of the marketing department. So when I'm searching for broccoli, I will basically find a picture which is using the broccoli vegetable inside the picture. So let me open the detail of this. What do we see? We see, of course, a bigger preview of the assets. There we go. We see some metadata. And now the cool thing here is the following. So people have, of course, the ability to set a description, to change the title, and so on. But what is very nice here is, for example, the tags, what we see over here. So we see that the asset is tagged with food, vegetable, and bowl. But we also see here a color and a certain description. So here the tags as well as the color and description are basically auto-generated by the system. So while uploading the asset into the system will send the asset through a certain cognitive services application, which will generate automatically metadata for you. This makes it, of course, lots easier to manage the metadata and makes the search capabilities also more powerful because you have immediately all of the right keywords on your assets. So the reason why I find this broccoli picture based on the keyword is because of this auto-tagged metadata. Another way of searching through your assets, let me remove this filter, is, for example, searching through the facets, or what we call also filters. As you can see, there's a couple of filters here. There's what we call asset types. There's what we call the file type. And we also see here a filter called color. And again, this is basically the filter which is auto-generated by the system based on the image analysis. So let me filter here for everything which is tagged to green. Then we will get all digital assets in the platform which have their primary color as green. I could remove this filter. If I, for example, would filter on, let's say, asset type images only, so I don't want to see the videos and documents, I of course also have the ability to combine several of those filters. So I have currently selected images, but I could combine this, for example, with a file type, or also with the tags, again, from the cognitive services tool. So for example, everything which is tagged with a plate, everything where the food is shown on a plate will then be filtered. Of course, we can save this search, so we can later on execute it. So I just put a name on this, demo search. Last but not least, there's also the ability to do advanced search. And using advanced search, you can really search for very specific things in the system, saying that, for example, I would like to find assets that contain a certain value for a specific property, like, for example, the vision description or a specific file name, and so on and so on. So that's the most advanced way of searching. Next thing I would like to show you is the ability for users to download the assets from the system. Since this is final content, it will of course be used in other communication channels. So there's several options here. So there's direct download for people. Of course, this depends a bit on your permissions. I'll slightly step into detail later on. So, but using the download button, people can or download the high-res original file, or people can download the low-res file. Yes? Imagine you would like to do this in bulk for several assets. Well, thanks to what we call the selection here, so we have checkboxes on all of those assets. You can add stuff to your selection, and using selection, you can also do download, but then in bulk. And what the system will then do is it will first bring you to an intermediate page. It will not immediately generate the zip. It will go to the intermediate page because it also allows you to convert the files. Because typically in the DOM, you only upload your most high-res file. And you might want to convert the files to, for example, a specific file extension, let's say a JPEG, a PNG, or a TIFF. Or you might want to resize the file to, let's say, maximum 300 by 300 pixels. By applying all those filters here, or this specification, sorry, you will basically ask the system to convert the original files towards your specific needs. Let me do this here. You can also provide a name for the eventual zip. There you go. System also requires you to agree terms and conditions. This can, of course, be adapted according to the needs of the company. So let me wait a second. And what we get is a download link over here, which gives me the resulting zip file. All right. So that about the downloads. Next thing I would like to show you is some different options to share the assets. So if I go back to my DOM repository, so to the content page, there's a couple of different options here. First of all, I just have made a a search, a saved search. Remember, some seconds ago, I made here this webinar search. So if I re-execute, of course, I get the same results. But the cool thing here is there's a certain icon which gives me a mini pop-up over here, which is a certain URL. And thanks to the URL, which I can share with other users inside the platform, I can basically ask my colleagues or share the link with colleagues so they execute exactly the same query into the database. So this way you can basically work on the same assets. Of course, this is a dynamic query. If new assets will be uploaded in the system, tagged with the same information, they will of course also be part of the search results. Another way of sharing is the following. Let's say you want to really share your files based on a very specific selection. So let's say I would like to share a couple of assets, the ones which I select over here. What I can do is the following. I can go to collections. So I open a new tab over here. And collections is basically something like a virtual folder, let's say. And as a user, of course, you can make a new collection. So let's call this webinar collection. So you would typically use this to share a new product collection or a collection with new product pictures for a certain product launch or for an event and so on. So you have to choose a certain collection type. So I will call this webinar collection. There we go. You can put a certain description over here. All right. And the cool thing with the collection is the following. So first of all, I would like to add some assets to it, of course. And there's two ways how you can do this. By clicking the add button over here and click add existing, which gives me the pop-up, which is basically searching in the DOM and allowing me to select assets from the DOM. So let me select some assets over here. There you go. That's one option. Another option is I go to the selection of the content page. I select my assets over here. I copy them to the clipboard by doing this. And then I click again on the add button, but instead of using the add existing, I'm using paste from clipboards. So second way of adding your assets to one collection. Now, of course, just making a collection is one thing, but of course you would want to share this. So there's enhanced sharing capabilities here. So by going to sharing tab and clicking the add users, you will get the option to share your assets with several users in the application. So let me select a bunch of users over here. By the way, you can also do this with user groups. There we go. So what will happen is people will, or all of the people selected right now will get access to all of the assets in the collection. Even if they had, based on their security profile in the system, even if they didn't have access before on the assets, the system will now grant them access. And what kind of access do they get? Well, by default, they will be readers, which will basically make them available to see and download the files. But you also might want to make them a contributor, for example, which will be able to edit the metadata of the files or add even new versions. All right. So last permission type you have here as well as managers, and this basically means that you can also, as a manager, make the security changes of the collection inside the collection, of course. Last interesting part over here is the commenting option. So within the collection, there's also ability for users to, let's say, communicate with each other. So can I use those assets for our upcoming product launch? And then I use the add characters to assign this comment to a certain user. What will happen? Well, this user will get an email notification. And sorry about the typo over here. the user will get an email notification about this comment and will get also a link to the collection where this question was be added. And then people can reply on it and so on and so on. All right, so this is a second way of sharing assets. So it's again a way of sharing the assets with people inside the platform, because of course you need to have a Marketing Content Hub account for this. There's two other ways of sharing assets, which I will show right now as well. And those are focused on sharing assets with people who do not have access to the platform. First way is basically a very easy one. If I go back to my downloads page where I was before, where I did this bulk download job, an option I have over here is to click this email icon. And if I click this email icon, what the system will do for me is it will generate an email with the following link over here. The link I have selected over here is a temporary public URL, which contains a hash over here, which basically makes it secure. So you can't guess this URL. So all people in the world which have access to the URL can download the files. So this is a very easy way for you to distribute, let's say, your files or to share the files with people who do not have access to the platform. How long do the URLs persist? Well, it's configurable in the system, but by the default is 7 days. All right, so that's an option. Another option is the following one. Let me go back over here and clean my selection. Another option can be found by going to the detail of the assets. And there's here something what we call public links. What is a public link? Well, it's somehow similar as what we just have shown for the download link. It's basically a way on an individual asset level to make the asset publicly available across the internet. So let me say I'm choosing the following expiration date because I want the link to expire 2nd of February. And here I can also define what kind of version I would like to share or to make public. Do I want to share the high-res original file, or do I want to share the preview or the very tiny thumbnail? Let's go here for the preview. And then I can also add a relative URL, so which is just a piece of text which I can make sure that is added to the URL. So let's say I add here a webinar as well. All right. System will generate a URL in a second. And there we go. If I now copy the link and let me open this link with another browser. I'm now opening this with the Firefox browser where I'm not authenticated. If I click the link, you see that the image appears, and you see that the word webinar, which I had added in the public link, is added to the link. All right. So let's move on. Last thing I would like to share is the ability for users to upload data in the system. So if I go to the create page, the create page is basically a certain personal upload area where all people with access, of course, can upload assets. As long as they stay in the create area, they will not be visible here in the content page because this goes through a certain flow where I have a mini presentation. So people uploading in the create area will, and these are typically a product vendor, an agency, a photographer, they will have the ability to drag and drop their files, to upload the files, but they also will have the ability to add metadata to it. Once they've added metadata, they can submit it for review, and then the librarian can review the files, approve or reject them, maybe also review the metadata and change the metadata, and eventually publish them to the content area. Let me quickly do this. So let me import some files. There we go. Let me add my Finder here to the system as well. So let me upload a couple of assets. All right. System will generate the thumbnails of the assets in a second. So how can I now apply metadata? I could go R to the detail and just add them one by one. So this is the description, for example. Or I could do this in bulk. I could select my 3 uploaded assets and then do a mass edit. And in the mass edit, I can basically apply the same metadata as I can do on an individual asset. Let me select, for example, here this as an asset type. All right, now by clicking apply, I can submit this job, the job to update the metadata of all of the assets. Now, next thing I would do is I would submit them to the review area in case I would not be an administrator. In case I'm an administrator, I also have an extra option here to direct publish them to the content area because I just have these privileges. All right, so this is the first big application, Marketing Content Hub. Next thing I would like to show is the PIM capabilities of the platform, or some introduction on it. So in order to show you PIM, I will go to the PIM repository in the platform. So Marketing Content Hub is just more than just a DAM. It also allows you to introduce any other content type than assets. So in this particular case, we are looking to content types like products and SKUs, which are basically objects which hold metadata. And this metadata can be, of course, managed from within Marketing Content Hub. If we have a look over here at a product, for example, at the detail of a product, we see that there's metadata of the product. So there's a name and marketing description. We also see that it has some facts, so it's tagged to a certain vineyard to style. And this information can actually, or parts of the information can actually be upstreamed from your master data systems, like for example, SAP. So any information which is already located over there can be upstream to Marketing Content Hub. And then within Marketing Content Hub, product managers or any PIM involved people can then extend the products with marketing descriptions or with marketing metadata. So for example, here we have in this particular environment, we have a winemaker note, so I can add some extra text. There we go. I can change the appellation. And there we go. And so on. I also have the ability to use Y-bias. So instead of having one big marketing description text or winemaker notes where I have bullets with, let's say, benefits, I could add the Y-bias one per one in separate fields. So this is a great benefit of the wine. There we go. So which is a way for you to really individually manage these key selling points. And what else do we see on this page? Of course, you don't have a PIM without images. So of course you can basically link or make relationships between the products and the assets of the product. So in this particular example, we have 4 assets which are linked to my product. And there's also a link through the assets. There's also ability to filter for all of the assets which are connected to the product. And if I do so, I again get to the detail of the asset, which is basically a link towards the DOM. But also from within the DOM, you will see that there's a link back to the PIM area. So here we can see that the asset is used within this particular product as well as in an SKU. So the PIM area of Marketing Content Hub really allows you to connect and make relationships with all of the relevant objects in the product world, which is typically product families, products, and SKUs. Last thing I would like to show before we move on is a very nice feature, which is actually also an integration between the PIM and Web2Print. At the right top of the screen, we see a Generate PDF button. And this brings me a drop down with a bunch of options. And I have here the option to basically generate a product sheet. Let me do this. So what the system does for me, it generates a PDF file on the fly. So it will basically grab all of the data here from the repository and stream it into the PDF file. So it will basically give you an up-to-date product sheet of the particular product you have selected in PIM. There is more export and also import options, definitely based on Excel as well, but I will not go that far right now. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, later on this year, in February and March, there will be more specific webinars around each individual op. Next application I would like to demo is marketing resource management. Marketing resource management is basically the area of the application which can be used to streamline creative processes. And there's two ways, let's say, or two approaches which we support in MRM. So there's what we call workspaces, and there's what we call projects. So I will start with a workspace first of all. So I have a bunch of workspaces over here, which are typically, let's say, campaigns for which marketing collateral needs to be generated. For example, I have over here a winter vegetable campaign. And in this winter vegetable campaign, I would like to create some marketing collateral. And in order to brief people about the campaign, there's in the workspace the ability to attach assets. So for example, over here, if you click the information icon over here, you get a pop-up with some details about the workspace, but also some attachments. So let's say the people, the project manager initiating a workspace have the ability here to also upload some files. This could be a PDF file explaining how the marketing collateral should be used, or with some handmade drawings to give an indication of how the pictures of a photo shoot should be taken. All right. So let's say after the creation of a campaign, the project manager or let's say the responsible for the process can then start communicating with people. So and there's actually two options over here. There's two options. First option is to just send comments to users. So for example, I could send a comment to, for example, Gert, which is a photographer who would be responsible for doing a photo shoot. Please have a look at the attached briefing. You find all information around the photo shoot. All right, so that's one option. I just send out a comment. What will happen is Gert will get an email with the information of the comment and a link to the workspace. Gert will get to the detail, of course, of the campaign, and he will start working. Other option, and it's a more advanced option, is that you work with a task. So I could also send a task to Gert. So what is the big difference? A comment will just result in a message that is listed here in the workspace as well as an email notification. However, a task is something more advanced, so please have the photo shoot. All right. And when I create a task, I can basically choose from a bunch of different options. I could, for example, send a task up called upload files, and then the system will create a task for the user, which will give them the ability to really upload the files, of course, and read the briefings. But it will also allow me as a project manager to do some follow-up. Did the user already start working on the task and so on? So let me create this. All right. So I also see the task listed over here in the workspace, but I will also see right now the ability here and tasks, which gives an overview of all tasks. Right now, there's no tasks assigned to me, but if I filter here on all tasks, we see that there's two tasks assigned, one to Gert and one to Tom. Yes, I can filter for the users, and if I would now log on with or Gert or Tom, I would be able to execute the task. Another type of task which is relevant for such a process is, of course, reviewing, because after people have uploaded tasks, of course, the uploaded assets need to be reviewed. People might need to do annotations on the assets. So let me start a task over here as well for some review. So here I assume the user has uploaded the assets into workspace. All right, so I'll now send out another task to Anne, who is responsible for reviewing the assets. Please review the assets. There we go, and I will send out this task to Anne. All right. So what I will do right now is I will go to another browser where I still had the previous image open. Another browser and log in with the account Anne. All right. Anne will of course also have received an email, but in case Anne would go to her task page, she would see here the review task. And first thing Anne will do is accept the task, because this task might be assigned to several people. And so because it's assigned to a user group, and then only the first one will, let's say, be able to execute the task. And here she can approve or, let's say, reject some assets. So the asset is not sharp enough. But users will also be able to annotate on the assets. So if they click on the annotate button, they will get to a view on which users can zoom. And using rectangles, also add some comments. Please check the color here. There we go. All right, so after making several annotations, the reviewer will then typically put the status of the asset into the rework state, because he doesn't fully agree with it, of course. Please check the annotations directly on the assets. All right, the person who has initiated the task will, in this case, also get an email when Anne has now clicked the done button to indicate that she fully finished her task. If we then switch back to the, let's say, the project manager's account, and if I refresh the page over here, we will see that if we filter for all of the approved assets, that we only get now the approved assets or the assets approved by ALM. Just like we can see the rejected assets, the reworked assets, and also the assets which did not go through a certain workflow approval. So it's really on the workspace itself that you can select the assets that go through the workflow approval. Of course, you can also select to send them all through the approval. Then last thing which we typically would do is, let's say we would select all of the approved assets and then use the option here, here, to send them to the content area, so the DAM area, because they are now in a final state. All right. So this is basically the key options you have with a workspace. On top of the abilities of a workspace, there's also what we call a project. And a project is basically a combination of several workspaces, which also adds the context of a duration. Yes. So for example, if we would take a step back, and if we would zoom out a bit, if we think about a campaign, there is most probably different phases and different steps that need to be done. And thanks to a project on which you combine several workspaces, so we here see a bunch of different workspaces and sub-workspaces. Each of these workspaces comes with a bunch of amount of days, a duration. So for example, here the photo shoot will take in total 6 days. The copywriting will take 4 days. Thanks to this duration concept, which is possible in the projects area, you can also, as a marketeer, plan better and plan all of your marketing activities. All right, so this around the introduction on MRM. Again, this will be touched more into detail later on. What I will show next is something which actually integrates with the DAM area of the application, or it integrates a bit with all of the different parts, basically, which is the concept of DRM. And what is DRM? Well, it basically means digital rights management, and it's the technologies which allows to restrict assets that are licensed. So if we have a look at the DAM, we see that there's here a filter, restricted yes, no. If I filter for restricted assets, I see 3 of them. If I go as an administrator to those assets, I have the ability to download them, but I also see here a request downloads. Now, people with less permissions, they will not have the downloads buttons over here. So I will, in order to demo this, also go to another browser and log in with the restricted user and go to the same restricted assets. So I will filter here as well. I filter for restricted assets. Let me go to the detail. First thing you see when I open this pop-up is that there's a watermark over here. There's a logo as well as some text. So because the user is restricted, he cannot even use the preview which is shown here because there's some watermark on it. If I click download over here, you see that the download original and preview are grayed out because this user has limited permission in the system. But of course, this user might want to use the assets. What happens if he requests the downloads? Well, then a pop-up will be shown. And then the user actually will have to fill in a form. So he will have to fill in a form saying what his intended usage is, let's say from yesterday until 2nd of February. He will have to choose where he wants to use the file or the assets. Let's say he would like to do this in Belgium. And he will also have to define for which type of channel or media he wants to use the file. So for example, he wants to use them on Facebook. And then he has the ability here to click the check rights button. And what the system will then do is it will basically validate the intended usage of the of this particular restricted user with the license which is linked to the assets in the system. So an administrator and DRM administrator will connect license to assets, and when people download or try to download them, first the system will validate if the intended usage is corresponding to the license in the system. So in this particular case, I'm not able to use the asset because it doesn't match my license. Of course, since I did the setup of this demo, I know that this thing was licensed only until end of January. So if I retry and click check rights, system will now allow me authorization. So before I then can download the file, I still need to provide a certain reason. So I would like to use the assets for a campaign on Facebook. All right. And then the system will only give me the ability to download. Now, what happens when the user, of course, doesn't know the intended or the license, and he requests, for example, to use it until February, for example, and the system denies? There is also here the option to request authorization. And what will happen here? Well, system will then generate a certain workflow which will basically send a task to an administrator, a task like we have seen also in the review example some minutes ago. This administrator will then get the task and will then approve or reject the request. All right. So this is like the high-level intro on DRM. Last thing for today for the introduction is the options of the brand portal. So if we go back here to our, for example, our homepage, we see here a couple of different tiles. So we see the My Downloads. We see that we started the downloads today. We see a shortcut to a search page, and we see also here some, let's say, some static text and introduction text in the application. What about managing this content? Well, if we go to the manage area over here, to the portal area, we get to the, it's an admin section, which basically allows me to manage all of the portal information in the application. So what do we see over here? We basically see the details of our homepage. We see that there's a getting started, there's a My Downloads, and My Saved Searches. So those are the tiles you can really see over here. And so basically you can also manage them from within this portal area. So let me, for example, open this piece of text over here. And let me change this. Sorry. I think I have a small problem here. It's because my text is in white and my background is of course white. And there we go. All right, let me change this. So I just changed some piece of text. If I go back to my homepage, we will see that data is updated as well as the colors. All right. So what else are we able to do if I go back to the page? So right now we see that the My Downloads is first before My Saved Searches. I can also play with the sort order over here and just change it by using drag and drop. So let me refresh here as well. There we go. So Saved Searches and Downloads now switch places. So this is something you can do with the homepage. So based on this feature, you can basically adapt the homepage according to your brand. So the information you want to show, You can also show some more dynamic content like news items and so on. Another example is here what we see in guidelines. So guidelines is typically an area which is used to describe to marketing users of how they should use the brand. So in this particular case, we see some static text containing some images of how you use the brand. So how would we manage this over here? Well, it's fairly similar as a homepage. If I go to the guideline page, we see that we have two, let's say, items on the page. There's the table of contents here showing on the left, and there's the actual contents shown on the right. If I click in the admin area, the edit detail, we get to the area where I can change the information. So let me add here, for example, a new image. All right. What I can do is I can again search in the DOM for images, or I can upload very specific portal images as well. All right. I can choose the size I would want to use. There we go. And let me save this. And let me save this one more time. So let me refresh here. And there we go. We have basically now updated our static guidelines page. All right, so there's a bunch of different options here in Portal as well to show dynamic content here based on the DOM. So it's really very powerful. But again, we are in an introduction webinar, so we will not go any further than where we are right now. All right, so that's it for today. If there's any questions from your end, I'm very happy to answer them. Any questions can be asked, via the chat window. So one of the questions I get is if users can edit the file name. Yes, users can edit the file name. It's no problem. I get also the question, what does vision description mean? Well, vision description, let me go back here. And let me select this particular asset. Vision description is the description, which is basically set based on the image analysis tool. So when we upload an asset into the system, we will send the image to a certain service. It's a service from Microsoft, and it's a cognitive service. So it's based on machine learning. So and the system will automatically basically define a certain subject of this picture. So here the this cognitive service says that this picture has a plate of food with broccoli. Yeah, so that's what the vision description basically is. So it's a description which is generated by the system. So I also get some questions on some deeper explanation of cognitive auto tagging. Well, there's a bunch of different things which we, let's say, generate based on the cognitive services. I already mentioned here we have tags as well as a description as colors. There is some different options, and I advise you to Google for, and I will send out the link as well, Google for the Microsoft Vision API. So it's the Vision API we use to basically extract all of the information from the image. And there you will see that you're able to detect colors, as well as, for example, faces of people, the ages of people, tags. You're able to extract OCR, so text inside an image, and so on and so on. So basically everything which is extracted by this Vision API of Microsoft. So let me quickly show it. Vision API Microsoft. Here, that's where we integrate with. All of the information you can find over here is also extracted in Marketing Content Hub. And last thing, but also interesting to know about this, is that there's also something like a confidence level. So the system will also tell you how confident they are that their information is correct. So the higher the confidence, of course, the better or the more reliable you are. So I got the question, can I customize dashboards, the homepage dashboard? Yes. So I just changed one of the tiles, one of the items, the widgets. You can move them from place, but you can, of course, also you can add them as well as customizing them. So I get the question of workspaces and projects. Can I also manage visibility? Yes. I didn't go that far, but let me quickly show this here on the project. There is here a option also here to play with the user permissions. Just like we have seen with collections, you can add users to make them reader, contributor, or manager. So what is the difference between languages and locals? That's another question. Languages is a way for you to translate the content of your metadata in the application. So for example, you might have a description, a marketing description in the PIM world of a product. And since you're selling this product in several countries, you might want to translate it in, let's say, English, Spanish, and Chinese. So that's what we call languages. Then there's also locals, and this is more targeting the countries in which you're selling the products. So it's not because you're selling them in a certain country that you're also translating the information to it. I also get the question around hosting. Is it SaaS cloud only or also on-premise? Marketing Content Hub is only SaaS. So it's hosted in Microsoft Azure. Yeah, I also get question around which software do we use of cognitive service. Just shown it's Microsoft Vision API. I also get the question, why broccoli and not carrots? Well, because the Vision API is still learning. So the more it's used by companies and by people, it will learn and it will improve. It's as easy as that. So it's definitely not yet perfect, but it's a very good basis. I also get the question how to change the due date. So in a workspace over here, when let's say I create a task, I have some options over here. I'm looking, there's a way. I know, here. You need to switch to due date. And then it basically allows you to choose whenever the activity or the task should be done. Well, exports within PIM can be done based on Excel. This will be demoed in the next PIM dedicated webinars. That's one option. And then other options is to use our REST API. With the REST API, basically you can integrate and upload or export to any format. I also get the question on languages. Can we also make the portal, the UX itself, multilingual? The answer is yes. So there's basically two types of languages in the system. So you can or just translate, let's say, all of the labels here and just work with one content language. You could work with several UI languages, and in combination with several content languages, they can be different, or you can just have one UI language and several content languages. All combinations are possible. The due date of a Gantt view is based on the duration of the items. So let me answer this last question. Oh, sorry, I should not be in the templates. If I no, I think it's over here. No. Okay. Okay, let me quickly make a new activity. This is where the duration is set. So the duration or the due date of the full project is based on all of the durations of the underlying workspaces or activities. Yes, I also get a question around auditing or user actions. Yes, there's for any change which happens in the applications, so each metadata change, anything is reported into a reporting log. So for example, you can see over here, if you look at the reporting logs, but that's of course only here visible for administrators, you see here all of the actions which happened in the system. So we see that we did downloads, that we created some task, and so on and so on. All right. Well, the last thing I would like then to show is just the dates of the upcoming webinars. We see in February there's 2 webinars around digital asset management as well as marketing resource management, where you can definitely ask more in detail questions. And then each week in March we have webinars as well: product information management and digital rights management, web to print, and Azure Logic apps. I thank you for the attendance and hope to see you another time. Bye.